It was a sunny autumn morning when Miss Clara walked into the classroom with a warm smile on her face. The sunlight streaming through the windows illuminated the desks, where her students were already seated, eager for the lesson to begin. Clara was a passionate English teacher, known for her engaging and innovative approach to teaching. That morning, she was determined not just to teach her students English, but to do so effectively. As she entered the room, she greeted each student individually, creating a welcoming and friendly atmosphere. It was clear that Clara had a close relationship with her students, and they trusted her to guide them through the complexities of learning a new language. After handing out some materials, Clara walked over to the whiteboard and wrote in large letters, "How to learn English effectively." The students watched her intently, curious about what was coming next. "Good morning, everyone," Clara said, turning to face them. "Today, we're going to talk about how you can learn English in a way that is not only efficient but also fun and interesting." The students, with their pens and notebooks ready, waited eagerly for what Clara had to say. Among them was Lucas, a 17-year-old who had always struggled with English and was determined to improve. Next to him sat Sophia, a dedicated student who dreamed of studying abroad. And there was also Joe, an extroverted and energetic boy who always asked curious questions. Clara began the lesson with a simple question: "What do you think is necessary to learn English effectively?" She liked to start her lessons by involving the students and encouraging active participation. Lucas was the first to raise his hand. "I think it's important to study a lot and practice every day," he said, with a tone of uncertainty. "You're right, Lucas," Clara replied, "but learning English isn't just about the amount of study. It's also about the quality and the way you approach learning." Clara then went on to explain the fundamentals of effective learning. She broke down the process into three main pillars: motivation, exposure, and practice. Writing each of these words on the board, she explained that these elements were essential to mastering English. "First, let's talk about motivation," she said. "Why do you want to learn English? What motivates you to keep studying, even when you encounter difficulties?" Sophia raised her hand and responded, "I want to learn English because I want to study abroad. It's one of my biggest dreams." "That's a great motivation, Sophia," Clara praised. "Having a clear goal can help you stay focused and determined. But it's also important to find small daily motivations, like wanting to understand an English song or chat with friends who speak the language." The teacher then moved on to the second pillar: exposure. She explained that immersion in the language was crucial. The more you expose yourself to English, the faster you'll learn. This means listening to music, watching movies, reading books, and, of course, practicing speaking whenever possible. Joe, always curious, raised his hand and asked, "But what if I don't understand what I'm hearing or reading? Won't that be useless?" Clara smiled and patiently replied, "It's normal not to understand everything at first, Joe. The important thing is not to get frustrated. The more you listen, even if you don't understand everything, the more your brain will start recognizing patterns and words. Over time, you'll notice that you begin to understand more and more." The students began jotting down Clara's tips in their notebooks, absorbing every word with attention. Clara then moved on to the third pillar: practice. She emphasized the importance of practicing regularly, not just in class but also in daily life. "Practicing doesn't just mean doing grammar exercises," Clara explained. "It means using English in real situations, like texting a friend in English, writing short texts, or even thinking in English. Constant practice helps solidify what you've learned and makes using English feel natural." Lucas looked worried and raised his hand again. "What if I make mistakes? I'm not very confident speaking English because I'm always afraid I'll mess up." Clara walked over to Lucas and replied in an encouraging tone, "Mistakes are part of the learning process, Lucas. In fact, they're one of the best ways to learn. When you make a mistake, you have the opportunity to correct it and remember it for the future. The important thing is not to be afraid of making mistakes, but to use them as a tool to improve. The lesson continued with Clara explaining practical techniques to improve English. She suggested that the students keep a journal in English, where they could write about their day, their thoughts, or even what they learned in class. This would help improve their writing and organize their thoughts in English. Clara also recommended that the students join conversation groups or make friends with English speakers to practice speaking. You can even use language exchange apps, where you can chat with people who are learning Portuguese and practice English at the same time. Sophia, always dedicated and organized, carefully noted down all of Clara's tips. She could already imagine how she would incorporate these practices into her daily routine. Meanwhile, Lucas, still a bit insecure, began to feel a spark of hope that he could really improve his English if he followed Clara's advice. After covering the 3 pillars, Clara decided to open the floor for questions and discussions. She knew the students had specific doubts and wanted to ensure that everyone left the class with a clear understanding of how to move forward with their studies. Joe, as usual, was the first to raise his hand. "Teacher, what's the best way to improve my English pronunciation? I have trouble with that." Clara responded enthusiastically. Improving pronunciation requires practice and a bit of attention to detail. A great way is to listen to native speakers and try to imitate how they speak. This can be done through music, movies, or even YouTube channels dedicated to teaching pronunciation. Another technique is to record yourself speaking English and then listen to it, to identify areas that need improvement. Sophia then asked about how to deal with grammar, which was often a challenge for her. "Teacher, I always get confused with grammar rules. How can I get better at them?" Clara replied with a sympathetic smile, "Grammar can be tricky, but it doesn't have to be an obstacle. An effective way to improve is to focus on one grammar rule at a time and practice it until it becomes second nature. Also, by reading and writing regularly, you'll start to recognize grammatical patterns and understand how the rules apply in practice." As the lesson drew to a close, Clara decided to wrap up with some words of encouragement. She knew that learning English could be challenging, but she also knew that her students were capable of overcoming any obstacle. "Remember," Clara said, looking each student in the eye, "learning English is a process, and each of you has your own pace. The most important thing is not to give up and keep practicing every day. You have all the tools you need, and I'm here to help you every step of the way." The students thanked Ms. Clara for her valuable teachings. They left the classroom that day with a new perspective on learning English, feeling more confident and motivated to continue their studies. Lucas, who had previously felt intimidated by English, was now determined to follow Clara's tips and improve his skills. Sophia, with her dream of studying abroad, felt more prepared to face the challenges ahead. And Joe, always curious, couldn't wait to practice his pronunciation and see the results. Clara watched her students leave the room with a sense of accomplishment. She knew that by giving them the tools and motivation they needed, she had planted the seeds for a successful future in learning English. And that, for Clara, was the true reward of being a teacher. The lesson ended, but the students' journey in learning English was just beginning. They knew that with determination, practice, and Ms. Clara's guidance, they would be able to achieve their goals and become fluent in a language that would open doors to the world. In the days that followed, Clara's classroom became a place of constant practice and active learning. The students began sharing their experiences, discussing the English songs they were listening to, the books they were reading, and the conversations they were having in English. The atmosphere was filled with enthusiasm and camaraderie, with everyone supporting one another. Clara, always attentive to her students' needs, continued to adapt her lessons to meet each student's interests and challenges. She introduced vocabulary games, role-play activities, and even English movie sessions with subtitles to help the students get used to different accents and contexts. The students' progress was remarkable, and Ms. Clara felt even more confident in continuing to dedicate herself to teaching her students. Thank you for reading. I hope your development has improved with this video. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment with any questions, suggestions, or opinions about our content. See you next time.